Geeks at the Nerd Table review of Rings of Power, Season 2, Episode 2, Where the Stars Are Strange. Okay, Editor Frank here. If you haven't gone and seen any of Lord of the Rings of Power, pause here. Major spoilers ahead. Go watch the episodes and then come back and watch this review. There's a lot to go in that happened in this episode. There's just a lot. It's jam-packed in there. Let's take it by race. Let's start with the elves. Elves had their trial by fire of the rings. The rings seem to be fine and pure. So the elves are all wearing them. You have Galadriel and the High King of the elves, Galad. I say his name wrong every time. Those two main characters are wearing the rings. You have a third elf who is a elder elf that has say in the community, wearing the third ring. Now, they're set forth to make plans. What are they going to do with the outcome that Elrond brought forth to the elves, that Sauron has returned, that Sauron was Galadriel's companion, and all of that. They send out a messenger to Lord Calibrin, who is not at the main city of the elves, who is back at his forges, and is just in waiting news about these rings. Last he knows, he's not supposed to deal with Galadriel's companion anymore, and is just forging away. We get a scene of him creating a new type of metal that glows in the moonlight. We've seen that before in Lord of the Rings. It was done in a gate, so we're kind of foreshadowing to things that we know about, which is awesome and super cool. You even see kind of the scrolling that you would see around the gate to Khazad-dûm later on in Lord of the Rings. So it's a fantastic little piece there. It looks, when it was forged and quenched, just like a piece of chunk and nothing shows. But then in the moonlight, you see the scrolling and everything, and it's brilliant. So a little bit of forging going on. He's definitely doing some fantastic work with metal working. I wonder if we're going to get to see certain blades be forged. It'd be really cool if we do, because we know that they were forged by the elves long ago and then lost into a troll pit. Maybe we'll get to see their forging. That would be super cool. One of my hopes for the series. But back with all the other elves, with Galadriel, she's campaigning that Calibrin is not safe out there by himself, that they need to go out there. They need to protect him. They need to keep Sauron away from him. She's campaigning really hard. Elrond is trying to rectify what's going on with these rings. So he goes to the elder of the elves, and the elder basically says to him, these rings have great power, and if they were to fall into Sauron's hands, what would happen because of it? So the elves need to be the ones that protect them. Because Elrond feels kind of like, jaded and like, you know, he thought he was on the right side, and then his mentor basically flipped on him and said, no, these rings are pure and good, and like, we need to use them because they have great power, instead of letting them fall to the enemy. That's basically where we leave the elves. The elves are snippets throughout the entire episode, where you're piecing together all this information. We'll leave the last bit of Sauron till the end. Then you jump into the dwarves. There are really only 3 characters that actually matter when it comes to the dwarves. Doran, his wife, Desai, I'm saying it wrong, and the King Doran the Third. King Doran and Doran the Fifth have a falling out, and he strips him of his title. So he's no longer the prince. You see him actually mining besides the other dwarves. They're kind of budgeting their money because they don't have the opals that they did when they were the prince and princess. But his wife, while they're in the marketplace, who sings to the mountains, feels a rumbling. And that rumbling then cuts off the light channels that they've carved in the mountain. You actually get this brilliant look at the top of the mountain and a beautiful carving that they did into the mountains, and then it's these mirrors that are reflecting the light down and through the channels, and you see it hitting these points that are cascading light over gardens that are in the mountain. Khazad-dûm isn't just this deep mine system. No, it's more. It's an entire living ecosystem that has incredible technology for the dwarven kind. It's fantastic to get to see it. It is a beautiful shot. Me as a film guy loves seeing those scenic shots and those kind of storytelling things that are put in place super quick, but at the same point tell you a huge story. Right before that, we got to see a map of Middle-earth pinpointed around the volcano erupting, and then these black tendrils, these vines that are kind of, or roots, if you would, that are expanding out, and they hit the dwarven kingdoms. And then that's when we get the scene of Desai feeling and hearing the mountains doing something, and she starts warning everybody to take cover because something bad's about to happen. Later on, you see her also trying to sing to the mountains to find the pathway to reopen the light channels, and she can't. The singers have lost their connection to the mountains. And you see that the dwarves are in this state of emergency. Perfectly setting up for somebody of great power to come in and fix their problem. Most of that's early in the episode. A little bit is at the very end of the episode, but you get a decent chunk of that. Now you move on to a very interesting character, the Stranger. The Stranger is out in the desert with his 2 halflings, his hobbits, if you would, Nori and Poppy. They're out there, and they are just trying to find their way, to the stars. Poppy pops up to help them find their way because they were lost at first. And Poppy ends up reminding them, you have to stick to the song. And the song will actually help. She found in the books an old map that went the way and went deep into the desert. Now, in the desert is another wizard, the Dark Wizard. That's the only name we have for him right now. And he has servants that he's sending out to find the stranger. The images are stark here. I'm going to call it here. I think we're going to get the reveal soon enough that the stranger is actually an early form of Gandalf, and the Dark Wizard is a early form of Saruman, and we're going to see the two of them discover their powers and find their ways. So you have this interesting situation arising where one is trying to get rid of the other, and they don't really know their full identities and who they are and who they're supposed to be. And it's interesting storytelling. It's a shorter bit in there, but it's important for the bigger picture and bigger storyline that's going on for Lord of the Rings. I don't feel like it's absolutely needed at this point, but it can be better for greater lore. Last bit that we're going to talk about and the review, we're going to talk about Sauron. Sauron is staked out in front of Lord Caliburn's castle, and he's just waiting. He's sitting there biding his time. There is servants that were sent out to kill the messengers, so the messengers from the elves never got to Caliburn, and he doesn't know of what's going on. And Sauron is just kind of waiting him out. Sauron's sitting in his human form, waiting him out, and finally, eventually gets to be brought in. And when he's brought in, it's storming outside. So Caliburn kind of takes pity on him, standing out in the rain, and goes down to talk to him and say, hey, look, you got to go, or I'm going to force you to go. And at that point, that's when Sauron starts working his magic. That's when Sauron is then, warping his mind. Interesting takes, interesting things that are out there. So at this point, he gets to come up to the forge, and there's this big, colorful explosion of fire, and we get this reveal of a new look to Sauron. It's definitely playing on the elven look, and that he's more of like an angelic figure here to save Middle-earth. He literally asked for the rings of power to be created. More rings for humans and for the dwarves, knowing that the dwarves are like hurting and would take anything at this point. It's kind of really interesting. A lot going on there. If you haven't realized, we know the story already. We're just getting to finally see how it actually played out. This is kind of brilliant. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, wait a minute, it took them like 100 years to actually create all these things. This is for TV. It's going to be at a faster rate. I don't know if they're later on going to like retcon some things and throw some names in there that like, oh yeah, these people should have been alive like while this stuff was being done and created. And like, no, it actually took way longer than, what seems to be like a short amount of time that we're seeing. it could have taken months, but we're seeing the condensed form. We always get these complaints when it comes to these kind of things. I don't think it matters that much. It's definitely looking cool. My thoughts, fantastic episode. Can't wait for more. I really can't wait to talk about it with the other geeks. So keep along with us. Get ahead of us. Watch some episodes. Check out these reviews. Put a comment down in our comments saying what you think is cool. Who do you think the best characters are? What storyline has you the most interested in? For me, I think it's definitely Glandriel and Elrond. That like, what's going on there between these two, and the story that they have going. And the Stranger definitely is very interesting, and how they're playing out that story completely independent of everything else going on. It kind of seems out of place, but I've been thinking it's fantastic. So comment, like, subscribe, join us on this journey, pull a seat up to the table, and welcome to the table.